Father Rob Arsenault. It's Wednesday. It's 8 o'clock, just about 8 o'clock. And it's time for the pastor's chat. I haven't done one in a while. I've been away. I was on vacation. A couple things. We had I think it was a ministry night early in July, and so that just was Wednesday night, and I think I just skipped one night, and then I was away on vacation for about 2 weeks, and I had a little camera issue when I came back. And then I thought, well, there was no great hue and cry on the internet, so I thought, well, maybe no one missed me. But I did have a parishioner mention it to me the other day, so I thought, well, I'll come back and do just one quick little pastor's chat, and we'll kind of put it out there again and talk about some things. And this is, again, going back to almost during our time during COVID, where on Wednesday nights I just come on and just talk about things, and it was the only way I could reach out to my parishioners. And we kind of kept that going. We've had it going now for a few years. So I don't know if I'll do it every Wednesday, but I think I'll just try to come on once in a while when there's something particular that I think is on my mind or something that's coming up in the parish. Well, this week I'm preaching, and again, that always kind of gets in my mind about what I want to share. And this series, it's an interesting thing. It happens every 3 years because the preaching cycle is every 3 years. And what you get is this, it's a dissertation on the feeding of the 5,000. And that was 2 weeks ago. He said, well, we've already had that. We moved on from there. Well, it's that whole sequence of teachings that Christ does. First, that I preached 2 weeks ago, and I talked about incarnational spirituality, that Christ is not just an idea or a thought, but he comes to be with us. He journeys with us. He walks with us. And he feeds us. Like it was just that practical. Like people were in need, and he responded to that need. Then John preached last week, because there's almost a disappointment that people say, well, this is great. Let's make him king. Like we'll have like a, I'm going to be facetious, but it was like the replicator on Star Trek. You could just get Jesus to feed you all the time. Like the food security was a huge issue in biblical times, and to be able to eat every day and not have to worry about it, that was a huge thing. But that's not, of course, what Christ wanted to do. He wanted to feed the people, but then move in a different direction. So he just kind of admonishes them and says, you're coming just for the food. Or, this is something more. And now this week it continues. So this is 5 weeks of this ongoing discussion. And it's a bit tricky as a preacher because especially I remember when I was a young priest, I was, by myself. And so I preached all 5 weeks. And of course you do your big guns, talk about the Eucharist, and you talk about Christ's celebration, and you talk about who he is. And we got 4 more weeks of this, right? You got to kind of hold your powder a little bit. And because there's going to come a point in this. So we've come into this sort of sense of the feeding of the 5,000, incarnation, but it's more than just feeding. And that's what Father John talked about last weekend. And the next 2 weeks, it's going to be, Christ is going to be very clear. I am the bread of life. Unless you eat of my body and drink of my blood, you cannot have life. And of course, the response of the followers are like, you're crazy. This is madness. No, in fairness, it's a huge taboo. Like, they didn't drink blood. It was the part of the kosher laws. Like to eat person's flesh was abhorrent. They couldn't understand it. We see it in context of the Eucharist, but they couldn't see that, and they walk away. And again, this is this moment where Jesus could have chased them down and said, no, look, it's a bad metaphor. I'm sorry, you misunderstood me. But he doesn't. He holds his ground. He says, no, that's the way it is. And finally turns to his closest followers, the apostles, and says, what about you? Are you still with me? And that's where it's going. So I'm kind of in the middle now, and what I want to try to kind of almost like map this out because it's again I preached 2 weeks ago. I won't preach again until into September. So it's just trying to not steal Father Kevin and Father John's thunder, but kind of situate this growing kind of understanding of what's going on here. That it's not just about feeding people. It's about being the bread of life. It's the sacrifice, the passion, the death, and the resurrection. The Eucharist, as we understand it as Catholics. What an incredible gift that it is. It's both the kind of the means and the ends. It's how we come to know Christ, and then, of course, it is Christ that we spend eternity with. So it's powerful stuff, powerful, powerful. And then how do you kind of become aware of that in our own lives? I think we've become so routine with the Eucharist. Like many of us who practice can, we come every Sunday, some of us almost every day, and it can become routine. And it can never be routine. It can never be glorious enough in our minds. Like, And just to kind of underscore that, there's something that was kind of brought up. I won't talk about it this weekend because I don't think that many people even know about it. But the United States just put on, in the Catholic Church in the U.S., a Eucharistic Congress. And they timed it beautifully. I'm sure it was intentional that they would put it just before this 5-week series. Because if I was in the States, I'd be preaching on this for sure. And making reference to the Congress, and everybody comes over to the Congress, and they would preach on this now for the next 4 or 5 weeks. It's beautiful, perfectly timed. And the Congress was in Indianapolis, but that's sort of in the Midwest, kind of United States, and they had pilgrimages from all the sides of the country. There's one from the north that came down. I think from California, they walked the Eucharist every day. From New York City, from this way, and from, I think, down near Dallas or Houston, I think from Texas, and they walked up, and they all met in Indianapolis just in time for the conference. And it was at a football field there. It's where the Colts play. It's an oil, it's something oil. I can't remember the name of it, but it's 40,000 people, gathered for a huge mass and Eucharistic celebration and holy hours, and just a powerful, powerful thing. And it's part of an overall revival, I think, that's starting to happen in our church as people are rediscovering the Eucharist. It's hard to explain because it's always been central to our faith, but I think there's seasons and times, and that happened in the Middle Ages as well, and maybe where people get lackadaisical, or they get kind of almost superstitious, and maybe something in the confusion after Vatican II, it's just sort of almost downplayed the real presence, and I think it's been a bit of a problem now, without going to extremes, but to come back into this deep and rich understanding of what it is to have Christ in our midst. The placing of a tabernacle, at the center of the church, I think is a good thing. I think celebrating the Mass in a very worthily way. I think drawing more people and giving them opportunities for adoration, and having the churches open during the day so people can come and pray when they want to. And it sort of seems sort of radical, but it should be normal Catholic life, and this should be where we should be at. So just to kind of encourage people wherever they're at, in your churches, you can ask for this, or try to, even if you go to Mass on a Sunday, then maybe try to pick up one more Mass during the week, like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Try to find a time when that would fit, or maybe a place. Sometimes St. Patrick's is famous downtown Ottawa to have a number of Masses during the day, and for people who work, it's a noon Mass, and it's a very popular one. The point of it all to say that this is the center of our faith, and I think as we talk about renewal and about coming into a deeper relationship with Christ, and sort of an awakening, and this notion of early rains, that people are sort of coming to the faith in new ways, and that's the other line in this, in the gospel is, no one comes to Jesus unless the Father draw him. And that seems to be what we're seeing. The people are being drawn back into faith, not being drawn to lots of things. People are exploring and questioning and all those things, and that's fair. But some are coming back. And they're coming back looking and asking, is this really true? Could it really be possible? And again, as a parish, we want to welcome them, and we want to celebrate well, and we want to have, really powerful music, and that's why we did the renovations in the sanctuary. It's all part of that. The hospitality, all of it is meant to bring people closer to faith. So, my friends, wherever you are in that, again, it's a journey, but to know that Christ is at the end of that journey. He is there in the Eucharist. He is present to us. And we're going to be hearing about this now for the next 3 weeks. So it's all good. We're talking about it really every Sunday, but specifically the next 3 weeks. So let's come together in faith, and let's come to experience Christ, body, soul, divinity in the Eucharistic presence. So may the good Lord continue to watch over you, guide you, and protect you. May the saints and angels intercede for you. May our Blessed Mother wrap you in the mantle of her peace. May God bless you and keep you now in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless you, and have a good